Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Charles, I'm 36 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought my marriage was salvageable. We weren't perfect, no couple is, but I thought we were working through it. I built my business from scratch, a small chemical analysis lab in Spokane, Washington. Not flashy, but honest. I didn't have a flashy car or designer suits. But I had integrity. I had patience. And for 8 years, I thought I had a partner. Her name was Alina. We met when I was in the early days of building the lab, when I was still renting cheap equipment from liquidation auctions and fixing plumbing issues myself. Alina was finishing nursing school. She supported me with words and soup and that gentle, curious smile of someone who genuinely believed in me. But lately, things changed. I first noticed it when her sister, Marla, started staying with us more frequently. Marla, the golden child of the family. Tall, loud, flawlessly dressed. She worked in pharmaceutical sales and treated every dinner like a TED Talk about her 6-figure bonus. She'd smirk every time I mentioned the lab. Called it my science shack. I laughed it off at first. But the worst part wasn't Marla's mocking. It was Alina silently agreeing. You learn to read your partner after almost a decade. It's in the way they fold their arms, the way their silence lingers too long. Alina stopped defending me. Then she stopped engaging at all. The night before it all began, we had a quiet argument, if you could even call it that. I told her I was tired of being the punchline in my own house. She told me I was too sensitive. We slept back to back. Then came Sunday morning. She handed me a mug. I made you something special, babe. It was tea, herbal, she said. Something to help me relax. The second I brought it to my nose, I knew something was wrong. I don't mean emotionally, I mean chemically. It smelled bitter, like senna or wormwood or cassia. I test these compounds every day. I know what gastrointestinal poisons smell like. But I said nothing. Instead, I kissed her cheek, told her she was amazing, and walked into the living room where Marla was loudly complaining about our water pressure to someone on speakerphone. Typical. I waited. I said I'd drink the tea later, once it cooled. That's when Marla strutted in, rolled her eyes at the smell of her coffee, and grabbed the wrong mug. Alina's eyes widened, just a flicker. Barely visible unless you were watching for it. Wait, Marla, that's... Marla waved her off. God, finally something decent in this house. She took a long sip. Then another. Alina said nothing. Neither did I. By noon, Marla was doubled over in the guest bathroom, groaning about food poisoning. By night, she was dehydrated, pale, furious, and clueless. She blamed our leftovers. Alina hovered nervously, playing nurse. I just watched. The tea sample, what was left of mine, went into a sealed vial and straight to my lab the next morning. I ran the tests myself. Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. I don't guess, I prove. Chamomile. Honey. And high-dose senna extract. Enough to cause crippling cramps, vomiting, and dehydration for hours. Not lethal. But definitely targeted. I sat there staring at the printout like it was a stranger's confession. But it wasn't. It was my wife's handwriting in chemicals. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the faint sounds of Marla groaning in the guest room and Alina pacing the hallway, whispering on her phone to someone, probably their mother, probably rehearsing excuses. And me? I just stared at the ceiling. When someone you love tries to hurt you, your brain doesn't react the way you'd expect. It doesn't go straight to rage. It stalls. Freezes. It questions itself 1,000 times. Am I imagining this? Could I be wrong? What if it was just a mistake? But the data was clear. I trusted the instruments in my lab more than I trusted my own heartbeat at that point. I kept playing the moment back in my head, the tight, apologetic smile on Alina's face, the way she watched me hold the cup, the flash of panic when Marla took the first sip. She hadn't expected me to hesitate. She didn't think I'd notice. But I did. I always do. You don't run a chemical lab without noticing when something's off. It's in my bones to measure, verify, confirm. And now, I was measuring my wife's betrayal in milligrams per milliliter. But the question haunted me. Why? Why would Alina want to make me sick? Why would she risk something so extreme? We'd had arguments, yes. She didn't like how much time I spent at the lab. She said I was too isolated, too stubborn about being independent. But she had never, not once in 8 years, shown cruelty. Until now. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I went through our old texts. Her messages from the first years, full of pride in my work, stories she told her nursing colleagues about how I'd helped a city project avoid contamination, or traced dangerous bacteria in a daycare's pipes. She used to brag about me. And now? Now she made tea laced with senna and handed it to me with a soft smile. The next morning, Monday, Alina made pancakes and coffee like nothing had happened. She even asked if I wanted honey in my tea. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Not today." She barely blinked. "Okay. Suit yourself." Marla was still too weak to complain, though she managed a theatrical sigh every time she moved. I drove to the lab early, closed the door behind me, and ran the tests again. Same result. This wasn't imagination. It was intent. But the intent still wasn't clear. It wasn't meant to kill me. That much I knew. If anything, it felt targeted, just enough to knock me out of commission for a day or two. But why? Tuesday morning, I got my answer. It was in the folder I found tucked at the back of Alina's desk drawer in our home office. She had gone to the pharmacy for Pedialyte and crackers for Marla. I stayed home, to rest. She didn't know I'd be resting in her workspace. The folder was labeled, Vincent Business, Confidential. It hit me instantly, my real name wasn't even on the folder. Vincent. That's what the email thread inside called me. Apparently, Alina had been forwarding confidential information about my business to a man named Derek Ransom, VP of Business Development for a company called Axavex Biolabs. I recognized the name. They'd reached out last year about acquiring small labs like mine and folding them into their corporate network. I politely declined. Apparently, Alina didn't. In the emails, she detailed my client contracts, equipment inventory, income projections. She sent photographs of my lab. Private documents. My work. My name. One email, dated the day before the tea incident, sealed it. He won't sell willingly. I've tried reasoning with him. Derek, maybe you were right. Maybe he needs to feel the pressure before he sees the benefits of letting go. I'll find a way. I want this over. Attached was a PDF labeled, Exit Transition, Estimated Timeline. She had planned it. Not just the sabotage. The takeover. That tea wasn't about hurting me. It was about controlling me. About making me weak. Making me dependent. Making me doubt myself. I closed the folder and stared at the walls of the home I had built, painted by hand, room by room, every corner touched with years of effort. And she had planned to gut it in one weekend. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch until dawn, listening to the wind and watching the lights in our neighborhood flicker out one by one. I thought about the years I gave her. The sacrifices. The loyalty. The love. And now. She wanted to trade it all in for a finder's fee. I could have gone to the police. I could have called a lawyer. But something inside me snapped into clarity. If Alina and Derek wanted to teach me a lesson about control, they were about to learn the final chapter. Because I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to plan. You never really understand someone until they try to destroy you. That phrase ran through my head over and over as I sat in my lab, staring at the hard copies of every email Alina had sent Derek Ransom. The tone was sickeningly professional. No affection. No emotion. Just manipulation, structured like she was project managing my downfall. If he's too proud to sell, we push the narrative that it's for his own good. He's overworked. Vulnerable to burnout. He just needs a nudge. Trust me, once he's weakened, he'll fold. Weakened. They were trying to break me down without breaking the law. No direct attack. No violence. Just enough psychological and physical strain to make me give up what I'd worked a decade for. But they underestimated two things. 1, I don't break easy. 2, I have access to tools they didn't even know existed. I ran Alina's laptop through a forensic scan. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I found everything. She had an email folder named, Draft, Do Not Send. Inside were messages to Derek that she'd typed but never sent. He's suspicious. He smelled the tea. Marla drank it instead. I played dumb. I need more time. That sealed it. Her intent, her plan, her cover-up, it was all right there. But the real discovery was a shared Google Drive folder. It contained scanned copies of my lab's key client contracts that had never left my locked cabinet. That meant Alina had either broken into the lab or convinced someone to give her access. But the timestamps were revealing. They matched the nights I worked late and left her home alone. She had used my own keys while I was away. In the same drive, I also found one last document that made everything click into place. It was an unsigned non-compete agreement. But not for me. For her. Axevex Biolabs had offered Alina a position, some consultant role in clinical acquisition strategy. Base salary, $140,000. Plus bonus. Plus a $25,000 finder's fee if the lab deal closed. My wife had been offered a promotion for helping them acquire my company behind my back. She wasn't just sabotaging me. She was upgrading her life at my expense. The tea was only part of it. This was a long con. A hostile takeover disguised as concern. That was when I stopped grieving the marriage. Grieving is for people who've lost something real. This wasn't real. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. Now it was time to fight fire with fire. And lucky for me, I test chemicals for a living. I understand slow burns, reactions, detonations, and silence. I wasn't going to blow up on her. Not yet. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's calculated. That night, I greeted Alina like nothing had changed. I made us dinner. Pasta. She seemed surprised. A little hesitant, like a child who knows they've done something wrong but hopes the grown-up hasn't figured it out yet. How's the lab? She asked. I smiled. Stable. Quiet. Just the way I like it. Marla was still recovering, drinking Gatorade and watching bad reality shows in our guest room. Alina reached for a bottle of wine. Maybe we needed this weekend, she said softly. To reset. I raised my glass. To new beginnings. She clinked her glass against mine and drank. I watched her for a few more seconds, then said, Hey, strange question. Did you ever hear from that Axevex company again? The one that offered to buy my lab? Her glass froze halfway to her lips. Why would you ask that? No reason, I said, shrugging. Just curious. Figured if someone offered you $25,000 to hand over my life's work, you might at least split it with me. She dropped the wineglass. It shattered across the kitchen floor. The silence that followed was heavy. Dense. Her face turned white. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the emails. The drive folder. The senna extract in the tea. The position you were promised if I gave up my independence. Alina opened her mouth. Closed it. Then opened it again. That's not, Charles, listen to me. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? She stepped forward. I was trying to help. You're killing yourself trying to keep that lab afloat. I just thought. You thought if I was too sick to show up to work, I'd be desperate. Desperate enough to sell. Desperate enough to depend on you. No, she snapped. I just wanted you to see that there are other ways, better ways, to live. You're obsessed with that lab. You shut me out. I laughed, cold. So your solution was to poison me and sell me out? To team up with a corporate shark and get everything I built? I didn't poison you, she whispered. It was just tea. It was senna extract in doses that could hospitalize someone. That's not tea, Alina. That's premeditated sabotage. She started crying. Not the kind of crying you do when you're hurt. The kind you do when the game's up and the cards are on the table. I just wanted you to let go, she said, through tears. I was tired of watching you break yourself down. I wanted a life with more than this. I stared at her for a long time. You already got more, Alina. Just not from me. Alina packed a bag that night and left for her sister's condo across town. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to. There was no screaming, no fight, no begging. Just a silent understanding that something irreversible had shattered between us. Her plan had failed. Her tea had backfired, literally. And I was no longer the man she thought she could control. But I wasn't just going to let her walk away with a failed attempt and a shrug. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated attack, against my business, my freedom, my future. And I was going to show her and her little corporate puppet master exactly what it felt like to underestimate the wrong man. Step 1, lock it all down. I spent that night changing every password, every access code, every piece of digital infrastructure tied to my lab. The cloud servers. The building alarm. The VPN. The remote diagnostic logs. Everything. I called my landlord and had the locks changed on the lab before sunrise. Next, I disconnected my personal and business bank accounts from every shared or known device. I contacted my 3 most trusted clients, ones who had known me for years, and warned them about potential impersonation. No names. No accusations. Just, if anyone tries to offer you services on my behalf, call me directly. They all agreed. No questions asked. Step 2, legal firepower. By Tuesday morning, I was in my attorney's office, sitting across from Gwen Patterson, a sharp, no-bullshit woman in her 50s who had seen every kind of corporate backstabbing imaginable. I gave her the folder. The emails. The shared drive evidence. The notes from exec's biolabs. Even the chromatography report from the tea. She read everything silently, then looked up at me. You know what this is, right? Espionage. Coercion. Conspiracy, I said. She nodded. And grounds for divorce, a civil suit, and potentially criminal charges depending on how far you want to go. How far can I go? She folded her hands. As far as you want, Charles. But the smartest play? Hit them where they think they're untouchable. What's that? Their reputation. Gwen helped me draft a formal legal complaint, one that wouldn't just threaten Alina, but exec's biolabs. We outlined every instance of unauthorized access to proprietary files. Every attempt to influence a private business sale through unethical pressure. Every traceable digital communication between Alina and Derek Ransom. It was airtight. But it wasn't enough. I needed them to feel it. Publicly. So I reached out to someone else. Her name was Leah Tran. Investigative journalist. She once did a series on pharmaceutical companies manipulating independent clinics into handing over their patient data without informed consent. I had helped her verify a few chemical formulations back then. When I emailed her about Axivex, she called me within 10 minutes. You have proof. I have more than proof. I have motive, method, and correspondence. Are you willing to go on record? I want to burn them to the ground. Leah's voice was cold. Focused. Let's do this right. I gave her everything. The documents. The emails. The contract offer. The fake acquisition outline. She interviewed me for 3 hours, off the record at first, then asked to visit the lab in person. We met the next day. She brought a photographer. Not just a lab, she said, stepping inside. This place feels like you. It is me, I replied. And they almost took it. While Leah started preparing the story, Gwen began prepping the lawsuit. We decided not to file it yet, timing mattered. We needed everything to hit at once. Like a surgical strike. I didn't just want them scrambling. I wanted them exposed. But there was still one piece left. Derek. I called him Friday morning. Mr. Ransom, it's Charles. Alina's husband. A pause. Then his voice tightened. Charles. What can I help you with? I think we should meet. He cleared his throat. I don't think that's necessary. If this is about. You're being investigated, Derek. By the press. By my legal team. And soon, probably, by regulators. But I figured I'd give you one chance to look me in the eye. He exhaled slowly. Where? Coffee bar on 5th. 1 hour. I'll be there. He showed up in a navy suit, silk tie, and anxiety hidden beneath a forced smile. I wore jeans and a black t-shirt. Let him wonder who held the power now. Charles, he said. I know this looks bad. You told my wife to drug me. His face flushed. That's not true. I never said. You encouraged her to create vulnerability. You suggested manipulating my stress, my health, my sanity. And she delivered. I never intended. You never cared what happened, as long as the paperwork got signed. That's your business model, right? Buy out small guys, bury them in legal silence, rebrand what they built as your own. Derek's jaw clenched. What do you want? I want you to pull out. No more contact. No acquisition. No approach to any lab within 200 miles of Spokane. And if I hear your name again, if I so much as smell Axivex in my zip code, I go public with everything. He laughed weakly. You're bluffing. I pulled out a copy of the legal draft and Leah's press badge. This hits the wire Monday morning. He went pale. You wouldn't. I would. And I will. Derek stood. This conversation never happened. Wrong again, I said quietly. This is the one you'll remember for the rest of your career. Monday morning hit like a lightning strike. At exactly 9 a.m., Leah Tran's article went live on 3 major platforms. The headline was brutal. Small business sabotage, how one lab owner was nearly conned into selling by his own wife. She pulled no punches. She described the scheme in detail, how Alina, my wife, had secretly worked with a corporate development manager from Axivex Biolabs to pressure me into selling my independent lab. She described the medically questionable T incident, the stolen business files, the secret emails, and how corporate coercion nearly destroyed my livelihood. My face was blurred, but the details were crystal clear. Leah kept my name anonymous, for legal and safety reasons, but she quoted me directly, calling me a chemist entrepreneur who built his company from nothing and nearly lost it all to manipulation disguised as concern. The story exploded. Within 2 hours, it had 20,000 shares on X, Twitter. By lunchtime, it was trending on Reddit. My inbox was flooded. Some people shared their own stories of being pushed out of their businesses by corporate wolves in sheep's clothing. Others just said one word, respect. But more importantly, exec started bleeding. Leah had named Derek Ransom directly. She included screen caps of his emails to Alina, the phrases about creating situational pressure, and the $25,000 incentive tied to my company's acquisition. By the afternoon, exec Biolabs issued a public statement. We were unaware of the full extent of the communications and tactics described. Effective immediately, Derek Ransom has been placed on leave pending a full internal investigation. Translation: they threw him under the bus. And Alina? Well, she called me 3 times that day. I didn't answer. Then came the text. Charles. What did you do? Please. We need to talk. You've ruined my life. No, Alina. You ruined your own life. I just made sure people saw it. That evening, Gwen filed the lawsuit. We served it directly to exec's headquarters, civil suit for attempted corporate sabotage, unlawful use of proprietary materials, and conspiracy to defraud. We didn't stop there. We also filed a formal complaint with the Washington State Business Ethics Commission, attaching all of Leah's published materials and the internal files Alina had leaked. Gwen told me it was a long shot, but it might trigger an inquiry that would publicly list their unethical practices. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a warning shot to every corporate vulture out there. You don't get to eat people like me and walk away clean. On Tuesday, I went back to the lab. It was just me and the hum of the machines. I calibrated a mass spectrometer, ran a soil analysis for a local farmer, and checked in with a city rep about a water test. Normal work. Honest work. The kind of work no corporation can fake. I sat in my chair and looked around. The lab felt quiet. Lighter. Then my assistant, Jamal, popped his head in. Hey, boss. You see that article? I smiled. Yeah, I read it. You were the guy, huh? I nodded. He grinned. Good for you, man. That was badass. That evening, Alina showed up. She didn't knock. She still had a key. I was in the kitchen when I heard the door open. I didn't even look up. You're supposed to be staying at Marla's. I needed to see you. For what? An apology? Or just to tell me what a monster I am for fighting back? She stood there silently, eyes red, hair tied up, wearing the same coat she had on the day she handed me the poison tea. You destroyed my career, she whispered. No, I said calmly. You handed it over to exec for $25,000. I just made sure no one else suffers from what you two were planning. I never thought you'd go public. Of course not. You thought I'd collapse. You thought I'd give up. Sell out. Be grateful you stayed to help me recover. But you forgot one thing, Alina. What? I built this alone. And I will survive this alone. She started crying. Real tears this time. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just. I felt invisible. I looked her straight in the eyes. Then maybe you should have asked me to look. Not tried to erase me entirely. She reached into her purse and pulled out signed divorce papers. No contest, she said. No claim to the lab. No alimony. I took the papers without a word. Before she walked out the door, she turned back once. Do you hate me? I thought for a long time. No. I just don't trust you anymore. And I'll never forget what you tried to do. By the time the weekend rolled around, the media storm had quieted, but the fallout hadn't. Axivec's biolabs had gone full damage control, PR statements, internal reviews, LinkedIn posts about learning from mistakes. But it wasn't working. Shareholders were asking questions. Smaller labs that had once considered selling to Axivex were now backing out of discussions. And Derek Ransom? Gone. Wiped from the company website. His LinkedIn quietly updated to, open to work. I thought that would be the end of it. But then came the knock at my lab door. It was Gwen, my attorney. Her expression was tight. Controlled. "You're not going to believe this," she said, stepping inside and handing me a manila envelope. It came certified. From Axivex's legal department. I opened it. Inside was a formal offer. A buyout. Not a threat. Not a cease and desist. Not a lawsuit. A respectful, fully transparent $2.1 million acquisition offer. My jaw locked. "They want to buy my lab now?" I said. Gwen nodded. "Not with coercion. Not with manipulation. A real offer. Clean. Full valuation. No funny language." I read it twice. No mention of Alina. No hidden clauses. Just a straight-up offer to acquire my business, retain me as lead scientist for 3 years, and even expand the lab's operations under my guidance. It was tempting. But something gnawed at me. This wasn't redemption. It was a recovery move. They needed me to clean their reputation. Leah's article had made my lab a symbol, an underdog standing up to the machine. Now the machine wanted to buy the underdog and wear its skin. "Charles," Gwen said, gently, "you're holding all the cards now. You could walk away with millions. No strings." I shook my head slowly. "That's the problem, Gwen. I built this to never have strings." She smiled. "I figured you'd say that. But that wasn't the twist." The twist came Monday morning, when Leah called me again. "You sitting down?" she asked. "Why?" She exhaled. "I just got a tip from someone inside Axivex. A whistleblower. And you're going to want to hear this." I leaned forward. "Go on." She hesitated. "There was never a real plan to acquire your lab, Charles. Not at first." I froze. "What? The first contact with your wife? That wasn't business strategy. It was personal." Leah pulled up a transcript from the whistleblower's email. Derek Ransom had known Alina long before any acquisition talks. They'd gone to college together. Reconnected at a medical tech conference. The emails began weeks before the business interest started. The tone in those early exchanges? Flirtatious. Intimate. One line, verbatim. "He doesn't deserve someone like you. Once you're free of him, you can come work beside me, for real." My throat tightened. This wasn't just betrayal by manipulation. It was betrayal by emotional affair. And possibly more than emotional. The poison. The data leaks. The plans. It wasn't just about selling my lab. It was about replacing me. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I printed the emails. Every line. And I walked into my kitchen, where the memory of her smile still clung to the corners of the room like a stain. I poured myself coffee. Real coffee. No strange herbs. Then I called Alina. She picked up, hesitantly. "Charles." "I know about Derek," I said. There was a pause. "How long?" she asked softly. "Long enough to know you weren't just selling me out, you were setting up your next act." She said nothing. "I'm not calling to yell," I continued. "I just want you to understand something. I would have given you anything if you'd just been honest. I didn't love him, she said quickly. It was complicated. No, I replied. It was simple. You wanted out, and you used me as your ladder. Now you're at the top, and I hope the view's worth it. Then I hung up. Later that week, Leah's second article dropped. From sabotage to seduction, the darker side of the exec's takeover attempt. She didn't name names. But she didn't have to. The timing. The narrative. The thinly veiled pseudonyms. Everyone who had followed the first story knew exactly who she was talking about. Alina. Derek. Me. After the second article went viral, something in me finally went quiet. Not empty. Not numb. Just, still. The kind of stillness that comes after a long storm, when the wreckage is clear and there's nothing left to do but rebuild, or walk away. I chose to rebuild. The media attention didn't die down right away. For a week, I got emails from news outlets, podcast hosts, even a documentary producer wanting to talk about the David versus corporate Goliath saga. I declined most of them. What happened wasn't a performance. It was my life. My betrayal. My home. My heart. And the price of that wasn't fame, it was clarity. Alina officially moved out 2 weeks after the second article. She didn't try to fight the divorce. She didn't ask for money. Maybe because she knew there was more I could have exposed. Or maybe because she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Last I heard, she moved to Portland. No job postings, no online updates, no apology. But I didn't need one. Some betrayals are so deep, so calculated, that forgiveness isn't the goal. Distance is. Derek. Gone from the industry. Word spread fast. Chemical testing and biotech is a small world. People stopped answering his calls. A few weeks later, Gwen forwarded me a small article buried in the business pages. Axevex Biolabs ends division headcount restructure following ethics review. Translation. They cleaned house to survive. They'll recover. Corporations always do. But the next time they try to take down a small lab owner, they'll remember me. As for me, I didn't take the $2.1 million. Instead, I took the storm and turned it into wind in my sails. I doubled down on my independence. Hired 2 new staff members. Expanded our testing services to environmental audits, forensic consultations, and even school water safety programs. The lab that nearly got stolen. It became a symbol. People trusted me, not because I beat the system, but because I refused to bend to it. I started mentoring young scientists who wanted to build labs of their own. People like me, with no trust fund, no corporate connections, just grit and knowledge and purpose. One night, months after it all went down, I found myself alone in the kitchen again. Same place. Same seat. Same chipped mug from the morning she handed me that tea. But everything else was different. I wasn't waiting for someone to notice me. I wasn't shrinking under someone else's vision. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was free. And that, I realized, was the real revenge. Not ruining her. Not exposing him. But healing myself. And knowing that everything they tried to destroy still stood. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.